Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town Council meeting for Monday, May 6, 2024. We're just going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So tonight we have a very special proclamation in recognition of Sergeant Jeffrey Foss Rugen, who is the recent recipient of the Enrique Camarena Award. And Sergeant Foss Rugen was nominated for this award by our Elks here in Rocky Hill. It's the Wethersfield Rocky Hill Association. And it's a really, really big deal because it's not just a local recognition, but Sergeant Foss Rugen actually became a state award recipient, and beyond that, a national award recipient. And we are so tremendously proud of him. And I want to invite Trish Newhouse, who is the leading knight from the Elks, to join me up here at the podium and to say a few words.
Thank you for inviting me tonight. The Elks are a fraternal order with 1,800 plus lodges, hundreds of thousands of members, and a 106-year history. Each year, every lodge can nominate a member of law enforcement for the Camarena Award. This award was instituted by the DEA in cooperation with the Camarena family and the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks. Enrique Camarena was an 11-year veteran agent of the DEA who was kidnapped, brutally tortured, and then murdered by the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico in 1985. Prior to serving with the DEA, Agent Camarena was a firefighter, a criminal investigator, and a narcotics officer. He was a loving husband and a father of 3 children. His death has inspired millions of Americans to lead a drug-free life, and the Elks celebrate his commitment to this effort with this annual award. Nominees should be involved in their communities in efforts to make them drug-free, have the support of their agency and respect of their community, be a positive role model committed to a healthy lifestyle, have made an outstanding contribution in the field of drug awareness and prevention, have been identified as someone who has gone above and beyond their normal duties, someone who has made a difference, and should exemplify the standards by which Enrique Camarena lived, worked, and died, that one person can make a difference. This year, the Wethersfield Rocky Hill Elks, with the help of Chief Klett and Lieutenant Gutsfeld, nominated Sergeant Jeff Foss Rugen. Jeff was not only selected as the winner of the Connecticut Elks Association, but also as the Elks Grand Lodge recipient. This is the first time Connecticut has ever had a national winner. Jeff has made a lasting impact on the Rocky Hill community, has been recognized by Mothers Against Drunk Driving numerous times, instrumental in the development of the Rocky Hill Police Department Narcan program, and trains his subordinates to focus on DUI enforcement. He's one of the nicest, most sincere people I have had the privilege to ever get to know. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, and now I'm going to call Sergeant Foss Rugen up, and we're going to present him with a little proclamation. And I'm going to start. So, this is in recognition of you. And it says, whereas Sergeant Foss Rugen has been a dedicated member of the Rocky Hill Police Department for 12 years, and throughout his exemplary career, he has demonstrated an unwavering dedication to keeping our community safe and ridding our streets of drunk and drug drivers. And he has further displayed an unparalleled certitude in the power of education to prevent and deter such activity, and has spent countless hours sharing both his experience and his expertise to highlight the need for a strategic approach to combating substance use through community education and collaboration. And Sergeant Foss Rugen's proactive leadership is exemplified in the significant contributions and the critical engagement he has made in community policing, including but not limited to recognition by Mothers Against Drunk Driving, active participation in the Opioid Coalition, leadership in developing Rocky Hill Police Department's Narcan program. And whereas, in addition, Sergeant Foss Rugen has won a place in the hearts and minds of our residents and can always be found engaging with folks at local events and initiating special recognition for Rocky Hill community members, families, and children who deserve to have their achievements and their contributions celebrated. And finally, we would be remiss if we were not to recognize Sergeant Foss Rugen for instituting the deployment of the nation's first PPG in an effort to bring awareness and expand the use of police patrol goats throughout the region. So for all that he has done and will undoubtedly continue to do for the town of Rocky Hill, I wish to commend you, Sergeant Foss Rugen, on your state and federal recognition of this amazing award, and I want to call upon all of our residents to join me in saying congratulations and honoring you on this day.
Anything, but I get nervous in front of everybody. I just want to say thank you. I came to this town in 2011 after 2 years in Avon, and I grew up in Rocky Hill and Weathersfield, and I remember being a young child at 1800 riding my bicycle, and then Sergeant Burns came up to me and said he could do whatever you want in your life, and it stuck with me. And I was able to come back to Rocky Hill and work here, and it's a great department to work for. I'm truly honored. I'm humbled. I thank Rich that got me into really talking about educational on the opioid crisis. As many of you know, my mother died from her drug use when I was 15, and about 14 months later, my father was killed by a drunk driver. So I've kind of taken those experiences to come back here, and I have the vision that one person can truly make a difference. And as a leader within the organization, I try to instill that. And if we could get that in every single person and every citizen in Rocky Hill and the country, we could do a lot of great things. So I want to thank Trish for nominating me. It's a huge honor. And I think I said it a while ago, I turned 36 last year and recently turned 37, but my parents made it to the ages of 36 and 37. So last year I was thinking, hey, you know, I made it to a milestone of where my parents made it, and I was looking for a sign. And getting this award kind of, you know, opened up my eyes that my parents are great people. They made some mistakes in their life, but have been able to help a lot of people in this community, not just myself, but the men and women that I get to work with each and every day, like with our Narcan program. It's not me. Our officers carry it, and we've saved countless of lives. And when I say it's we. We all have, and we've saved a tremendous amount in this town. And I want to thank you for all of your support, especially with this council. It all starts with the council here, giving us the tools that we need to perform our job. And whether if you're, you know, on the left or the right, it doesn't matter. You guys all come together to do the right thing. Dr. Martin Luther King said, when it's time to do what's right, you do what's right. And I think we do that here in this town really effectively. So I'm excited to go to Texas at the end of June and make Rocky Hill put it on the map. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Trish. And thank you to the residents of Rocky Hill. It's a privilege to serve this town. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, before we move on to public comments, I'd like to make 2 amendments to the agenda. I'd make 1A, a statement in response to symbols of white supremacy, and item 8B, discussion possible action, deep funding grant for co-collection pilot program.
I'll second.
Did you say new business D?
Yes.
Is it old business because it's a DEEP program, the DEEP grant?
I'm sorry, we'll make it new business, old business, item 1, item A.
Thank you.
I'll second that amended.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So I just want to acknowledge a recent event that's happened because I know that many of you out there are aware of it. Some of you may not be, but it is important for us to shed a light on when we see certain acts of hatred, and that is our intention this evening. And also to reassure the public that we are on top of these things. So I have a prepared statement because I want to make sure that I'm saying everything effectively and clearly. So we are aware of the latest symbols of white supremacy that have been erected in our community. And I want you to know that there will never, ever be a tolerance for hate-filled or hurtful acts of any group in Rocky Hill. And as we have in the past, tonight, we echo our prior commitment, and in doing so, make our position abundantly clear that hate in all of its ugly forms is categorically denounced by this administration and the entirety of our reach. To be clear, this is a statewide issue, a symptom of a much larger societal breakdown wherein certain individuals feel emboldened to force their views on others in a desperate hope that somebody, anybody, is going to follow them. It's a cowardly game of division. For this reason, I want to assure all of you that your local government, over the course of the past several months, has been proactive in its response. And we recognize that this has become a pattern. I'd like to share with you what I would consider a three-prong approach to this complex issue. And in doing so, it is our intent to ensure that we find ourselves as a community in a place responding to needs as opposed to reacting to the wants and desires of bullies. So the three-prong approach involves collaboration and coordination at the state, local, and federal levels, as well as grassroots levels. And what we're doing is we're working on community education, improving reporting systems, and enhancing security measures. At the state level, I can tell you that I continue to be in ongoing communications with elected and appointed officials, the State Commission co-chair, and lawmakers representing our town. At the local level, our police department is actively investigating this matter and is always exploring resources to keep our community safe. We know that hate speech in and of itself is not a crime, and we cannot control any group from trying to solicit members into some type of organization, irrespective of their mission. But I am incredibly confident that our police department, who is recognized as a CALEA-accredited organization for community policing, will leave no stone unturned. Our Office of Human Resources and Legal Compliance, in its role to support staff on the Commission for Inclusion and Innovation, also provides resources to commission members, the municipality, and those interested in learning more about responsive techniques. And then we have our Commission on Inclusion and Innovation itself. And in creating that commission, the town has established a robust system for receiving information and recommending next steps. It is focused on unifying the community within the communities via proactive action. And some of the ways that it's been doing this is hosting community conversation workshops, developing events such like the walk that they have, A Mile in My Shoes, recently collaborating with YWCA on developing workshops to engage more community stakeholders to actually participate in local government, because once more people begin participating in task force and committees and commissions, their voices will be heard, and that's what we want. And just tonight, working on drafting their equity statement. And then finally, I want to talk just a little bit about what happens at the grassroots level. So the importance of our grassroots groups cannot be overstated. Calling attention to egregious acts, hosting events, and providing opportunities for folks to gather in a variety of settings, including some of those more or quieter, safer spaces where folks can gather and actually talk about what's bothering them. It's the totality of these approaches at the state, local, and grassroots levels that provide a basis for effective community response and allow us to continue taking steps forward through the expansion of our message, which is unity. Rocky Hill has made great strides over the past 4 years to build a strong foundation for sustainability, one that will transcend generations. We have moved from a place of what if to a place of we can, and this is who we are. And together, we will continue to promote positive, inclusive, responsible policies and procedures with a unified goal in mind of ensuring that Rocky Hill is the best place for all to live, all to work, and all to play. And with that, I'm just going to see if anyone else would like to comment before we move on. Okay, so we're moving on. Let's go to public comment. So this portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person wishing to be heard should email publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov prior to 4 o'clock on the day of the meeting, at which time a link will be provided to attend the meeting as well as instructions on how to participate. We have one comment to read into the record, but is there anyone from the public who wishes to be heard?
Jen from Tumblebrook Road. I'm here today as a mom. I saw those signs yesterday, and it was like a knife in my heart. My grandmother always taught me that silence is compliance. And I just want to remind everybody in the community that we can't be silent on these things. We have to support each other, because when you are silent, you are acknowledging what they want, the message that they are saying, and that's what is being heard, and the other side isn't being heard. So I just want to remind everybody of that, to not be silent when you hear or see these things. Also, I think we've all had times that we were in school and moments in history where we wondered how we would respond. And I think Rocky Hill's in one of those pivotal moments right now. And I want to remind everyone that all of our children are watching us, and they're watching how we respond. So just everybody should ask themselves, what lessons are we teaching our kids in this crucial juncture? And how will history judge our response? And more importantly, how will our children judge us based on our responses? So I just, this community has always been one to stand up for each other, to rally for each other. I want to remind everybody we have a long history of Underground Railroad here and everything else, rallies, and we've always rallied for each other. So I just ask everybody to make sure when you see these things, you hear these things, let our community know that we all support each other and that hate isn't welcome in this town. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Alan Smith, 112 Old Main Street. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Madam Mayor, for that statement. I think that goes a long way. Also, I've spoken to members of the PD. I got a response from Chief Klatt this afternoon or this morning, and I think that was right on point too. I think it's reassuring to hear that they are trying to be proactive and investigative here. And some of these activities, while they're not illegal, are still obviously concerning. So, what can we do to counteract some of these, visible displays that have popped up a bunch of times? And I think I just want to remind everybody that, we do have a proposal on the table that we're working through kind of policies behind. And I would just, recommend that we have our own physical display something that is permanent here, that people can take pictures of those too, and that is a more permanent message, and speaks more volumes than just words as well. So just keep that in mind as we kind of work through the policy that we're working on right now. And thank you.
Okay, the public comment I have is, hello, my name is Chandra Green, 15-plus years resident of Rocky Hill. The forwarded message regards the proposal of a pride crosswalk at the intersection where the church is. I want to say that me and my whole family are in 110% of this idea, plan, etc. We think that it'd be a wonderful asset to our town and a great way to show support to the LGBTQ plus community. Warmly, the Green family.
Okay. All right, moving on to appointments and resignations.
Nothing new on this side. Same here.
Approval of the minutes, Town Council meeting April 15th, 2024.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then the public hearing, April 16th, 2024.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Subcommittee reports, A, Finance.
Finance Committee was scheduled to meet this Thursday because of all the budget workshops. We've canceled that meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 13th, 6 p.m. I will just comment that from the budget workshops, there was some requests for additional information on the special revenue fund, so we'll make sure to report those at coming meetings. They are already part of the Finance Committee monthly cadence.
Thank you. Government Operations.
Government Operations was not scheduled to meet. We are next scheduled on May 20th, but I will give a quick update, which our town manager will give more details on because I get asked about it often, about the pickleball courts. We did get bids in, and that is going to, looks like progressing. And as I said, town manager will give details in the town manager report about that later.
Senior Liaison. Nope. Public Safety.
Yeah, the public safety meeting is on May 20th. That's the next meeting. Thank you.
Senior Liaison.
Senior Liaison has not met since the last council meeting. Our next meeting is May 28th, 5 p.m.
Land Acquisition and Farmland Preservation.
We had a meeting April 23rd. We're going over the criteria for purchasing development rights and properties in town. Thus far, our town has preserved 400 acres of farmland and open space. On the town farm property, Bob Alvarado's been working diligently with the town crew to do the excavating or do the landscaping and remedial work there for getting ready for the barn. The barn has not started yet, but we have until June 30th for it to be completed so we could get the steep grant funds. That's all.
Just a correction on the date. We have until September 30th.
Oh, September.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Liaison to the State Rep and State Senator.
Okay, I've heard both from our Representative Wood and Senator Lesser with some updates, so I'll just provide those briefly. From Representative Wood, working on budget implementator, which is expected to have some additional money coming to Rocky Hill. A specific announcement will be made once that is completed. The Capitol is open to the public if anyone wants to attend during session, which ends this Wednesday. Today, the House recognized the DOT and first responders that addressed the catastrophic fire on I-95 and the ensuing work to take down the bridge so quickly. The Rocky Hill Housing Authority completed their application to get $55,000 in state funds for planning and design for expansion. And her last update is the ribbon cutting for the Putnam Bridge bike and pedestrian overpass is this Thursday at 1:30 p.m. From Senator Lesser, first is about some new funding for Rocky Hill. Senator Lesser has secured $250,000 earmarked for flood remediation design efforts along Beach Road, a high priority area identified in the Rocky Hill Hazard Mitigation Plan. This crucial funding will address the persistent threat of flooding, particularly impacting homes north of Littlebrook, ensuring enhanced safety and accessibility for residents. In addition to the allocation for flood remediation, the legislature has also secured funding for several other vital community needs in Rocky Hill, including $55,000 designated for senior and disabled housing, $25,000 allocated for the Rocky Hill Volunteer Fire Department, and $15,000 earmarked for the Rocky Hill VFW Post 2138. Then I have a few legislative updates as we're getting as I said, the session ends later this week. Last week, the legislature approved final passage of Senator Lesser's bill, Senate Bill 395, an act concerning the reporting of medical debt. With a bipartisan 106 to 44 majority in the House, following passage in the Senate, the bill now heads to Governor Lamont. Starting July 1st of this year, Connecticut residents will no longer have their credit reports dinged by medical debt. SB 396, supporting elderly nutrition. As chair of the Elderly Nutrition Task Force, Senator Lesser was pleased last week to lead the passage of SB 396 through the Senate, legislation that supports the well-being of our seniors. While the funding available for senior nutrition has fallen to levels not seen since before the pandemic due to cuts by the federal government, the cost of food has only continued to rise, placing pressure on our elderly nutrition service providers and on our vulnerable seniors. This bill will help stretch scarce dollars and connect seniors to more federal resources while ensuring that our local governments have a seat at the table. SB 308, wheelchair repair. As the Senate chair of the Human Services Committee, Senator Lesser led passage of Senate Bill 308 through the Senate last week, which makes a large number of improvements for wheelchair users with private health insurance and on Medicaid. The legislation requires wheelchair dealers to perform timely repairs on wheelchairs, generally within 10 calendar days, and also eases prior authorization hurdles and provides a new dedicated hotline for complaints from consumers. SB 1, improving public health and safety. The Senate last week passed its flagship legislation, Senate Bill 1, which seeks to improve health and safety of Connecticut residents, most prominently improving the on-job safety of home health care workers in the state. The bill also creates provision to establish a Connecticut Parkinson's Registry, improving the coordination of Connecticut's response to Parkinson's disease. SB 5, resources for our schools. Legislation advanced last week by the Senate would improve and increase access to early childhood education by streamlining enrollment in Care for Kids programs, also making technical fixes to programs improving nutrition and air quality in schools. Should the bill pass, the Department of Social Services and Office of Early Childhood will be able to share data on Medicaid-enrolled families taking part in the program, implement a pilot program where professional chefs improve meal quality in schools, and help schools comply with required inspections and evaluations of indoor air quality and HVAC systems by allowing waiver access if a qualified inspector cannot be hired in time. And lastly, SB 420, illegally passing school buses. The Senate this week overwhelmingly voted to advance legislation that allows Connecticut towns and cities to adopt monitoring systems to detect and find motorists who illegally pass parked school buses. Currently, towns and cities can use technology to find motorists passing buses, but only through July 1st of 2026. This will allow them to continually employ the technology, issue fines of $250 to offending drivers. And that's the report.
Okay. School liaison.
As we all heard the budget workshop, there was Mark Zito and the team who presented at the workshop, so no report tonight.
Capital Improvements Committee.
Capital Improvements Committee usually meets quarterly. With the budget underway, we will schedule our next meeting after the budget's approved.
And Economic Development Subcommittee.
This committee only meets when we have an application before the council for property, for abatements, and right now we don't have any that I'm aware of.
Okay. We have nothing on our consent agenda, so we will move to old business item A, deep grant fund money. No?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thought you were saying no. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to give you a very brief update of a meeting that the town manager and finance director and myself had with 3 individuals from DEEP, specifically to discuss the grant fund, the sizable grant fund that Rocky Hill was awarded to begin a co-collection pilot program here. And as you know, we have put off implementing that pilot program because we really wanted to see some results, namely what was going on in Meriden, and then some results from other towns. And as we sort of sat by and watched other pilot programs kind of begin and then end not so elegantly, it became clear to us that we really needed to spend a little more time looking into what we were doing. And one of the things that we didn't know that we brought up with Deep this afternoon was there is, I guess, a clause in the contract, should we accept the grant money, that we would be required as a council to mandate something that's called unit-based pricing. And that basically means that we would have to charge for picking up garbage, and we would do that through the sale of specific garbage bags. And it really became a very complex issue, one that we really never wanted to get into in the beginning. So the purpose of the meeting was really to see, okay, is there anything that we can do at this point? Because we know that we want to get involved, and we want to make a difference, and we want to start something, whether it's composting or co-collection, something at the curbside or something at the transfer station. But Deep did confirm that all of the grants that went out and any grants that are accepted have a dual component of unit-based pricing. We can't negotiate our way out of that. And I know that that was a sticking point for us. And that this year they are ending the pilot programs. So anyone who wants to get involved has to take on a full unit-based pricing program for their town. And there's no more time to experiment with that. And it's just a new direction that Deep is moving in. And I don't know, Mona, do you think I've covered it?
Very good. Good summary. That's it.
Okay. So I know that we've sort of left this out hanging, but I think, just to make it official, we should probably take a vote that we will not be accepting the Deep grant as presented to us. And I think the primary driver there is that we just don't want to implement the unit-based pricing. Councilor Sullivan?
No, I don't disagree with anything you said. There were a number of obstacles. One was reluctance to adopt that model, which would require each resident to purchase these specific bags. Which in effect, the first time people were paying to have their garbage taken away above and beyond the regular tax dollars. There was some contractual issues with our hauler, and there was a whole infrastructure that needed to be put into place to make this work, as was pitched to us, that I don't think was ever actually implemented. The timing did not strike us as right. It seemed a bit premature to commit to something that was not fully formed, and frankly, I think that our election, not to take part, proved out to be the prudent and correct course. So. Hopefully Deep has learned something from this. They can fine-tune the model. They can come up with some new ideas. But I think it's time for a reset. And under the circumstances, declining the grant under the conditions that were attached to it at the time strikes me as prudent at this time. We're eager to see what they come up with next, but what came to us to this point wasn't it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that and say, I think the way it stands now with no availability of a pilot program, I think it makes it very difficult to actually experiment and test and figure out if this is the right approach for our town. And that's a shame because we had about 2 years to figure it out, but we didn't. So now we don't have the pilot. So on one hand, I'm not too happy that we were not able to experiment with all the limitations as it is. They were there. It took a long time to figure this out, and now we are at a point we don't have a pilot. So I don't think we have a choice now, because I don't think anybody, including myself, would go for an option where we have to go all in or nothing. So like I said, I'm disappointed that we are not able to conduct a pilot, but as Councilor O'Sullivan said, I think that's where we are, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to do something like this, which will help our environment, our residents in the future. And hopefully DEEP will come up with something which we can adopt and test.
Yeah, I also would say I'm disappointed that DEEP couldn't come up with something better, that to put, basically, here's your option and that's it, kind of prevents us from, it's not the good plan for us to go forward with at this time, but like I said, I'm very disappointed that DEEP, and I hope maybe on the town level we can come up with something that we can get rolling in the right direction, but not be imposing on our citizens. I agree that we cannot accept this grant.
And I think maybe, I don't know, maybe Mona or the mayor could comment. It sounds like the towns that did implement the pilot, it was, let's just say, not successful.
Right,
From what
we,
we've heard.
we did.
So-
We had about 2 or 3 renditions where we made recommendations that didn't follow the unit base, so that's why we weren't able to push it any further. So we had definitely presented a couple of scenarios that wasn't supported by DEEP, because we were not doing the full-blown unit-based pricing at the end of the program.
Yeah, we didn't do a full implementation of how DEEP wanted us to do it, right?
That's right.
But it sounded like even towns that were trying to implement it, it didn't sound like it went over very well.
Yeah, do we have data for that? That's a good point, Jeff. Do we have data for that, Mona? What was the result of the towns on that?
No,
There's
you
data
mean-
on the website
There's-
for the state.
Yeah, but I think that's a good question. I don't know we know that because I have never seen the data.
I mean,
Because
just
there's not a
anecdotally, it
lot,
sounded like
there's
it
not a
was-
lot collected.
wasn't-
Yeah.
We've been asking for data, there's just not. So why don't we take a vote if anyone else, does anyone else want to be heard? Okay, all in favor? Oh, so sorry. Go ahead.
I guess I'll make a motion to decline the DEEP funding grant for the co-collection program.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to new business. A presentation update police and fire vehicles.
Yeah, get our slideshow going.
Did you say slideshow?
We have a slideshow, he's
Oh,
coming.
boy.
Sorry, oops. Can't get my mouse going.
Okay, this is a fairly brief presentation. We'll be looking at the history of use and funding of vehicles, as well as current matters, looking at charter, rules and policies, funding sources, auditing, and reporting, as well as cost impact and first responders' use of vehicles. Section 815 of the town charter specifies the town manager is the purchasing agent for the town until town council, of course, determines otherwise by ordinance. And the town manager is responsible for purchasing all supplies, materials, and equipment. Section 816 spells out the purchasing procedure, and in summary, any purchase $25,000 or greater in value requires a bidding contract to lowest bidder. Just to follow up on that, any contract that is $75,000 or greater also requires a bidding process. Historically, past practice, town managers have had the authority to assign town-owned take-home vehicles to municipal employees to address job-related issues, health, safety, liability. Those policies that regulate that particular, that regulate the use of take-home are included in the personnel rules, general orders of the police, and IRS benefit rules. As far as past practice goes, In the past 18 years I've been here, working under 3 separate town managers, the past practice has been the town manager has made those decisions. So, with that,
Okay.
Finance Director, take it away.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm pointing out a few of the other funding sources. We have not purchased vehicles for the town since 2017. So I'll show you a little bit later on about the expenditures, the sources of revenues. But if we had originally been using more frequently the private duty fund, that's any of those funds for the police that are doing construction road assignments and so forth. The purpose of that, of course, is to reimburse us for the cost, as well as having any other construction-related activities for funding. We've also used our asset forfeiture fund. Again, you'll see a chart coming up shortly on that. That being funds that are receiving through the federal government, it's more strict on what the abilities are to use that fund for. These are a couple of the items. There's actually a longer list, but this kind of gives you a highlight of that. So for law enforcement training, detention facility, which we don't have, law enforcement equipment such as vehicles, radios for drug awareness and to support investigations. We also recently started getting the limited access highway program. And that is for the reimbursement for the fire department appearing on the exit ramps or on ramps, and they're getting $500 per individual occurrence that they go there. Again, those funds have a purpose. That's for to reimburse the volunteer fire companies. With any kind of a funding source like this, that comes with a purpose. These are special revenue funds. I know we don't spend a lot of time studying the audit. Well, I do, but I imagine the rest don't. But there is actually a very in-depth section in your annual audit, because when they're coming out to audit the town of Rocky Hill, they're not just auditing the general fund. We're looking at anything, every special revenue fund. That means they're sampling the expenses. This is just a summary. This is the intro page to that section. This is not the entire audit. It's followed by balance sheets and income statements for each individual project. So in addition to the audit, we are now doing, and since July of 2022, that would be, we've started to do a special revenue report inside of the Finance Committee report. This had not been done before. It's a new practice. And what that does is it shows each one of those revenue funds and shows you what's their balance, how much money came in, and what their expenditures are. And I've actually looked back to see how recently we may have been discussing something such as vehicles, and I actually found back just last month. It was a topic where, I had mentioned to a counselor on the committee, not sure which one exactly, but we had talked about that Fund 09 is the asset forfeiture, and that is where we're referring to the vehicles. So we do review these individual line items, as well as the general fund during finance. Also, for this year, you have a section in the audit book. It's online. It's a big book, but we've got a lot of great data that's recommended by Government Finance Officers Association in order to give the most transparent budget. There is a section called the Fund Summary section, and within that, this would be the first time you would see a summary on those special revenues. They're listed, their purpose. It gives you 3 years of expense history, as well as a year of projection for the upcoming year. It'll be our first time actually projecting on a special revenue. It's not required, but that's what we're trying to do as we move forward to the better budget to be more transparent. So first I'll talk about the private duty fund. I'll give you a graph here to tell you what you're looking at. Of course, the little green line that's going across the top is showing you the revenue. As with many special revenue funds, these are not budgeted for. It's based on basically the service in this case for any private duty job that's out. So you can see it has its peaks and valleys, it's had its ups and downs, and with that in mind, we have to be sure that we are only expending what's actually there. Point out a little bit here on the start in 2016-17, it's all blue. That was entirely paying for the overtime. That's overtime and benefits for the actual service for the officers that did the private duty jobs. The following year, you can see a little bit of green on there that showed a purchase of vehicle, and that tended to be the trend for the next few years. I'll point out that kind of goldenrod item in the middle when you start seeing the 2020, 2021. There was an agreement because the police department went with a defined benefit plan. It was more costly than the town was prepared for. There was an agreement to commit a portion of those funds to offset the defined benefit. So you'll see that the later years that there is less reliance on those funds for vehicles since the commitment to the pension plan. Of those little green items across for that time period, there was 18 vehicles. Actually, that 22, 23, the small little green was the purchase of 4 vehicles, believe it or not, small dollar amount, and that goes through DAS. From the surplus vehicles. Basically, they were going about $4,000 each. Mentioned that the bid was for $25,000 per vehicle. We always go off of the state bid, so we do not hold a sealed bid every time for a vehicle. The state has identified the vendors and the vehicles, and we can purchase from their bid. Next, I wanted to look at the asset forfeiture fund. Again, you're looking at the revenue line going across the top, and it has its peaks and valleys. You can see for the 22-23, 23-24, we actually exceeded $200,000 in revenue. Previously, that was not the norm, and the timing was probably ideal for the purchasing of vehicles, because I just mentioned we were not using that fund as frequently in private duty, and the asset forfeiture fund was going to make itself available to make purchases of vehicles. Again, this is federal funding, and they are allowed for vehicles as long as they are police function related. Over that time period, there are 13 vehicles in there. Actually, you probably can't see it, but I had to count the one on 17-18, which was a tiny little $2,000 ambulance that we bought used. So, but it does count. I think I didn't mention on the previous screen, but I've got generated, in this case, 0.16 mils. That's if we were to purchase these vehicles through the general fund, then that would what we'd be saving because we're not using general fund dollars. And again, that's the purchase of vehicles, not the total revenue generated. That'd be even a greater number for your mill rate. Limited highway doesn't get the bar graph because it's relatively new. So we've got the activity there. We've got revenue coming in, about $198,000 to date. We'll still have some more coming in, but as you've probably heard, that the funding will stop for the next couple of months and pick up again in July. And that fund is intended for fire items, anything fire related. And what we've done with that, the blue circle at the bottom, you can see the majority of that was for Motorola upgrades that the fire chief made the purchase of. We've also had Firematic, which was some chargers and batteries. They added up to about $55,000. And we'll have this DAS, which were the 3 vehicles we had discussed not so long ago in the past. So that's about $23,000 for those 3 vehicles and about 0.7 of a mil. No, 0.07. I wish. Some little data. I was able to try to research and get as much information as we can. So we can see right now vehicle usage. We have for the police department, first off, So you have the chief, lieutenant, the sergeants, and patrol. Currently, for police department, we have 35 take-home vehicles. Plus, we have the 5 vacant. Obviously, those are not being taken home now. The animal control, which is not a take-home, and there are 3 spares that are a bit older in case there's a repair or something is down. The average age of those vehicles is 2018. That kind of helps out a little bit. And another bullet coming up. Of the 35 take-home vehicles, 15 of those individuals are less than 10 miles away from work, and the others average about 22 miles. I was able to go back and look at the pre-COVID, because the conversation has been that the take-home has occurred after the COVID. We ended up having each individual have their own vehicle rather than the shared, and rather than outfitting for a shared setup. So prior to that, there were 34 cars, no spare at the time, and the average age of the vehicles were 2011. The goal is to have these vehicles come like a 5-year age would be best for the cruisers. I've had, and I think it might come up later on about the repairs, but talking with the garage that we have to keep them relatively new. Anything over 150,000 miles has, apparently with these, we have a Ford shop that they have to have water pumps, so we like to keep them newer. So we have also, since that 2019, note that we added 3 positions. We had another SRO, and since the ARPA funds, there were 2 officers added. So the staffing level has changed over that time, keeping that in mind when we're comparing. So with calculating where each one of these individuals lives, assuming that they're going to do a commute to and from work, of course I have to take out the calculation for holidays and vacation days. So with that group, that's a commute of 16,000 miles. With the current fuel rate, we're looking at $39,000 in fuel cost for doing the take-home program for that department. A note on the fire vehicle usage, we have usage by the chief, by the fire marshal, and just recently for the 3 deputies. We don't have separated figures for the fire department. They all go together. Prior, it was the chief and the marshal, and separating the 2 vehicles away from the fire fleet just didn't seem to make sense with the gas pump software, if I can call that software. Sorry. As far as insurance, concerned that it must be costly to fund the insurance for these vehicles. I did reach out to our insurance carrier, and if we were to reduce the fleet by 1/3, about 10 vehicles off, that we would reduce our liability premium by $3,500. That's per year. I had a request to look into the claim history. So I went back for the 5 years, and in that 5 years, there were 5 auto claims that involved this group of vehicles. We had 1 incident with a deer, 2 in ice storms, 1 that was hit by another vehicle while it was actually parked, and another that was a cement post or a concrete post. That was our driver's got ticketed or warned on that one. So of all those 16,000 commuting, that's a 0.7. It's not a bad incident, but they are still 5 claims. Let's see. I know I had a request from Councilor Manuel if I could do 6 years of fuel. Our fuel data is very limited, but I was able to determine by department. So at least we could go back to those years and look at the fuel usage by department. So you can see that orange line is showing the police department by itself. And the blue line, I was able to identify major departments, that being the highway department, the fire department, the police department, and the parks department. I just wanted to point out that they tend to go with usage along that same pattern. They're almost parallel lines, if you will. You can see a little peak going up around 22, and then they're coming back down for the 23 year. But I'm not seeing any spikes, as in the major departments and the police department going askew.
How many cars are under that major department? Or is that number a take-home number, or is that number?
It's all vehicles, and for the police as well. That's not the take-home piece. That's just
Sure.
all usage for those departments.
How many cars under the major department?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I imagine it's got to be at least twice that. We'd probably have around 40 between
think that-
highway and parks, and honestly, I don't know the fire vehicles.
Yeah, I think the focus is really about take home, right? So if you have to compare people who take cars home in other departments, not everyone.
Right.
That's when you will see the difference, right? Because that's the difference you see so I think you're comparing apples to oranges, because in the police department, everybody's taking their cars home. In the major departments, not everyone is. I would, probably less than 10%, right?
Well, I don't want to.
Yeah, so that's
if I can go
apples to
back, so that was the
That's
point
bad.
of this particular piece of information. Again, we can gather them by the total, but I have identified at least that we know that there's 16,000 miles for commuting. That's that commuting piece, and then applying the gas. So that is your, as you call it, the delta. So the apples and the apples
No, but
right here are still all.
If the major departments are taking it home, 100% of them, then that will make sense. But
No, I understand, but
Yeah.
like I said, the data to go back historically wouldn't separate those out. So I can at least show you department by department that excess and taking home didn't.
yeah, no, I
Make that much
understand.
of an
I understand.
indication.
I'm just saying that will always
I
be higher.
understand.
That's all.
Mona, can you go back to that page that had the commuting miles? You just had it there, 16,000. So just so I understand, so the commuting miles base is 16,000 miles basically for police officers who take their cars home and back. Okay.
Correct, those are
And
additionals.
We're saying that the fuel costs associated with those just fuel costs associated with 16,000 miles is $39,000?
Correct.
So that, because if, I'm just trying to do the math, if 16,000 miles, say you get 20 miles per gallon, it's 800 gallons of gas, times $4, like, that's like 3,200. It's not, I'm confused how that's 39,000 for 16,000 miles just for gas.
I would look at that one for you.
Yeah, by the way, it's
Yeah, I mean-
16,000 miles per car.
Oh, no, this is the entire group. As you have, like I said, most of these are looking at, it's 10 miles away.
So, I mean, if I just did 16. if
And
you
I
did-
didn't bring that one.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah,
work.
I'll go back and look at
Doesn't
it.
work.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it should be less than the mile.
Probably is,
Yep.
but I don't have my,
Yeah, so I want to make sure.
Yeah, I think there's a calculation mistake.
okay, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, I want to drill down on those numbers a little bit, too. So the number of drivers, you said there's 35, of whom 15 live less than 10 miles from work. The others average 22 miles from work.
Correct.
So that's 20 people who on average, live 22 miles from work.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a round trip of 44 miles a day.
Correct.
Times how many average days per year typically? 5 days a week?
Right.
Okay, so bear with me here.
250,
Do about 220, I think.
So that's 220,000. And that's just for the ones who live, remote. Then there's the other 15 or so who live within 10 miles, so we add on top of that. So we're probably talking more like 250,000 commuting miles. Right? If we add it up?
Yeah,
that
that may
sounds
have,
right.
that might have been one trip. I'll go back and look at the formula.
Yeah, I think you have to really look at the numbers, Mona. Those are a
If
little
I had
bad
30
numbers.
So if we're at
I'd run in the
So if we're at
office.
250,000 commuting miles in, and whatever the average miles per gallon is, that comes to however many gallons times the average, cost of the fuel. These numbers that we're looking at don't make any sense at all.
Yeah, that might get us to the 39,000, by the way.
Yeah,
Well,
but
it does, and I'm sure the 16,000 is of a time period, and with the 2 seconds to get the laptop, I'd tell you in a minute.
Yeah, I think you gotta just fix it. I
Yeah,
think we can
260.
move on, but those numbers are not right.
Okay, I also have some questions on the
I'll
next
get the
screen.
details.
Where we're seeing 70 and 80 million. Can we take a look at that?
Yeah, that was the other question I was gonna ask.
What is that?
Yeah.
Those were the gallons that were coming through from the gas pump.
You must have some really bad leaks.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, if
That doesn't make any sense at all.
Imagine
that's like
that, it does.
190,000 gallons
That'd be a lot, right?
Okay, so I just, I,
Told you I didn't like their software.
well, I just ran my own math there, so I mean, I personally, I go through about, a tank a week, so 15 gallons a week times 52 weeks out there, about 750 per year for me, so, we'd have to have 100,000 employees times me to get to 75 million.
Yeah, I think that's a unit problem there, but even if you think that you made the mistake on both lines with the units, even then, it's not the right
It's gotta
comparison.
be-
Yeah, I think you made a mistake on the units
The
problem.
decimal point is over at least a couple
Yeah,
of
yeah,
places.
I think so.
It may be.
I think so. It's a unit problem.
By the way, this
from
was
their
last minute
readings.
to put together too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They gotta get it, we gotta correct it, but.
Shall we? Repairs. So on the, again, I'm trying to keep it under 10 years. This is the vehicle repairs. This is the actual dollar amount from that police account line. And you can see that there's a large peak in the 2021. That was for some additional costs for outfitting some of the vehicles at the time, being at cameras and so forth. And I imagine that, I think if I were repairing a vehicle in 2016, 17, and I had the same repair in 23, 24, I would expect that it may go up, but it seems to be overall keeping a consistent line.
Those are not repairs, that's equipment. I wouldn't call those repairs. Repair is something's damaged and you fix it. That's equipment, correct? You're putting
This is the
laptops-
actual repairs, parts, whatever the garage needed for a police vehicle.
It's equipment. They're laptops, lights.
No. This is like, whatever, it's maybe, thank you, I don't do oil changes, so it would be for whatever.
What's
the-
a repair classified then as?
This is from the town garage, and they have an account for the highway repairs, they have an account for the police, they separate them, and that would be anything from a spark plug to a water pump, except I know those are sent out. So it's an actual
Okay. it's a repair.
vehicle part. No, when you wanted to know about the lighting and so forth, that was back in your other funds. This is your general fund repair of police vehicle.
So there may be some maintenance items as
That's
part of that too.
all that's in here.
And when,
Well, there's still some spike.
was there anything that had to be done during the COVID years for the vehicles that might be pushed up expenses? I know we probably got reimbursed from ARPA or whatever, but still, were there other expenses in here that are non-recurring because of COVID that would have bumped things up a little, or?
Well, like I said, I went back and looked at that 2021, and actually it seemed to be more of the outfitting, trying to get the dash cams on those that were purchased at the $4,000 off of the state surplus. So that was purchased there. After that, they were all purchased just a regular outfitting.
So are
they
you,
did do
are you
some of
saying
that.
that that's part of the 59,000? Because you were.
Correct.
to
Only in
Fran's comment-
2021, yes.
Fran's comment, repairs are at the town garage.
Correct.
Now you're saying equipment.
As I'm saying, on that line for 2021, the exception is that they put in the cameras. So that one is high for 2021. They will not outfit a vehicle out of the repair account.
Okay.
So that's that exception that's standing out. Okay. And on that note, I'm actually going to give it away to our police chief, if you want to come on up and talk about yours.
Mona, before we go into the chief's comments, in the meantime, I want to like a little bit kind of zoom out and ask you if you have a policy for the whole town for like take-home cars, not just for the first responders, because I really am interested in talking about this in the broader context of the whole town. So I hope like you have that policy for the whole town. And Chief is here, so I'm not gonna, I just wanted to throw it out there if you wanted to go back and research or like get the policy if you have it.
Yeah, that should be in your email package.
It's not for the town, it's for the police.
It was for all three. You
All
had
three.
personnel
Yeah,
rules
but
for.
first responders, but I'm talking about our garage or like highway or engineering. There is a car and finance there listed, right?
That's right.
What does it fall under, that policy?
Personnel rules.
But is there a policy for
No,
those
personnel rules covers is the policy, and it
So there
relates
is
to
no-
anyone except for those that are the public safety, and police has their own, and then you saw, hopefully in your attachment, one for us fire as well.
Yeah, so I saw the first responders policy, and that's fine. I'm not talking about that. I'm zooming out and I'm saying, what policy the car for the finance comes under? Is there a written policy for how to use it?
Personnel rules. It's attached. It's
It
one of
was
the
in your
attached-
No,
email.
but does the personnel rule say like, if can be used for family purposes, going to supermarket, does it say that?
No, it doesn't say that.
It doesn't stipulate anything.
But it does say,
So-
well, we do tax as a benefit, so as you know, with IRS benefits, that's personal use.
Okay, I will get back to this. I don't want to keep Chief waiting, but I wanted to just zoom out of this a little bit.
was that?
I'm happy to listen to the chief, but I think you gave a lot of information about the first responders, but not enough for the other departments, so.
What we have.
But we'll get back to that.
I think the item tonight was really just about police and fire.
Exactly.
Well,
It was.
that's the missing piece. That's
Well,
what
we
I'm
can bring it
saying.
up another time, but I'm just saying, we shouldn't expect to bring something we didn't ask for.
We did ask for it, like in the email. It should have been town policy.
No, but it's on the agenda, fire and police, so that's what we're.
Well, you can stick to it.
And sticking with the agenda, let's listen to Chief Clay.
Good evening. Thank
Here
you
we
for
go.
having me tonight. There's a lot of backstory here too. But what I want to focus on is really the intrinsic value of what this equipment means to us, and really ask for you to listen to me, if you can, and ask for your support in making this consideration about if in fact it's a proposed cut here, or at least a recommended suggestion of a reduction in our fleet. What I can tell you is where this really started was back in COVID and the development of the senior center. Believe it or not, when that happened, we lost a significant part of our parking lot. So that was kind of where it started during the build period. If this program is suspended, we now have doubling the needs for our parking lot because we'll have people taking take-home cars, not home, they'll be left here in the parking lot. So replacing them with their personal vehicles. So we run into a parking issue. That's kind of where it really began. And then the COVID virus, trying to keep our employees safe and giving them a clean, healthy environment during that period. I can tell you from personal experience, I would meet our officers in the garage with our foam gun and be out there cleaning cars between shifts. It was really archaic and gross, and we wanted to make our employees feel safe and comfortable. And the former town manager and the chief debated this matter for some time and decided this is the direction that we wanted to go. What I can tell you really is the number one thing about this program, it's integral to our recruitment and our retention. This is something that we, unlike many other police departments, have throughout the state of Connecticut. I can only think of one other than the state police who has a take-home car program. Portland Police Department is the only one I can think of. There might be some others, so forgive me if I'm not perfect on that information. But the difference for us is we're asking for a portal-to-portal use to get these cars to their driveway, right? Well, what that does is not only have you been very generous to us with our benefits and our pay and our pension benefits, this is part of that picture. All right, I've talked about this last year too. Nothing's really changed here on what it means to us. It's not just a car. We are leaps and bounds ahead of other departments when it comes to benefits. Might be a great thing to say going into contract, Dana, but like we've worked really hard together as a team to set ourselves apart from other departments to become an effective recruiting department to bring people into our agency and keep them here. And I know you're have to make a decision on the cost and the expense of what this benefit means to the town. I respect that, all right? But what it means to us is it puts us leaps and bounds ahead of the next department that these officers are considering when they apply or when they sign the line. The reality of it is today officers are applying to multiple police departments at the same time. They go on policeapp.com. There's 15 police departments, and the first thing they're looking at is their pay number, and the second thing they're looking at is the pension benefits. And this car thing for us is in that 2A category, if not number 2, quite frankly. And what I'll say is, I'm telling you with certainty that this is the thing that we hear the most is our pay scale and our pension benefits and contractual benefits, how we've been treating our employees through the negotiation process with the town and raise commitment and your commitment to giving them the best benefits possible. But this car is 2A on this list. This vehicle is how we recruit people, how we retain people, and it's the first thing we like to brag about on our recruitment brochures and anywhere we can talk about it. And you can talk around the state if you're in this profession or business. When you go to training, people, the first thing they're asking is, how do you pull off this kind of program? And I think that's what this question's about tonight on the financial side. And we appreciate the support we've had, and I ask if you could consider continuing to support it, because to me, you're taking a huge tool off of my tool belt to continue that recruitment effort for the future. Where you're seeing an increase in public safety is really the response time and our overlapping coverage that is created by this. Okay, what's happening is at shift change at 7 in the morning, it's now becoming like 6:45. At 3 p.m., it's now becoming 2:45. I mean, that's the times we change our shifts. What's happening is those 4 or 5 officers are coming online, and they're in the proximity of town, and they're calling their relief, the person they're relieving, and saying, hey, I'm here if you want to get going. And that's great for our employees because they don't have to stick around and wait for a long call holdover. We can give a car on the road to that call. So for a quality of life piece for officers, it's fantastic. But from a public safety perspective, when those incidents happen, we have 8 or 10 cars here floating around on these shift changes, and I can't tell you, I can't quantify it. It's kind of hard to go through my overtime for this specific reason, but we have an overtime reason called patrol incident. And what that means is if you're held over for 15, 20 minutes, typically officers will put in for those hours or time, and those occurrences are I don't want to quote, don't hold me to it, but I've seen less of those types of entries in our system because what's happening is the brothers and sisters are stepping up for each other and assuming that role and getting their folks home on time. And not only that, but if we had a need for a larger response, we have that. One great example, I just learned an hour ago, I shouldn't say an hour ago, but about 5 o'clock this afternoon, that we're being recognized by the state police for a unit citation. About 9 of our officers, I mentioned this previous at public safety, a couple meetings, but coming in from town, have their radios on, and the state police is chasing around 2 criminals on Main Street Gaylord. 9 of our officers were there at 6:45 to 7:05 and making the capture of this suspect to the extent that the state, I've never seen it in 24 years, to be recognized by particularly the state police to do this, to bring us in, is saying something to me as well. It's how great we did that day. We've had officers make DUI arrests coming in from work while they would otherwise have to be going to the parking lot, parking their personal vehicle, reloading all the equipment, and it's a lot of equipment. It's not as simple as just going in one room. If we're down to singular vehicles where we're swapping out, it's a 10, 15-minute process. What you're getting now is they turn the key, they get within sight of town, and they're ready to roll. And I think that, to me, again, those are those intrinsic values I can't quantify for you. I can't put a dollar amount. It's your question, the answer, is that worth it to you? It is to me. The bigger piece, quite frankly, tough one to quantify too, and the scale moves, but pride and morale. These officers have benefited from this benefit for the better course of 4 years. And to consider a cut or to make a cut, I want you to know it's going to have a profound impact on my staff. Significant. One that I'll have to deal with. I understand it's a tough decision on the side of what it costs and what the expenses are, and I know Mona's trying her best to get you the information. But what I'll tell you is, taking a look at parts and repairs line, we were talking, that was the last piece you spoke about beforehand. The last 2 years ago, it was over by, that account, that line, by the way, unless we've changed, it's $45,000 budgeted. 2023, it went over by $53. Last year and the year before, $4,000, $4,200. We're talking about 2 water pumps or 1 transmission. We are not mismanaging our cars. We're not abusing our vehicles. They're lasting longer. They look better. They take great pride in their cars. They're clean. And I'm telling you, I think the sustaining this program keeps our cars younger. We keep them longer. They have less miles on them. And I know that's a discussion about the commute. But for the few miles we're putting on there, these cars are still lasting for a lot longer. The suggestion to reduce our fleet in any way, the way it changes our operation is I am now looking to run a car 24 hours a day potentially. More likely it'll be 16, but in some cases you could have a car running for 24 hours, particularly if it's the 1/3 cut suggested on the PowerPoint. So, and that's actually less cars than we had before COVID. So those are the intrinsic pieces. I leave it to you to make those financial decisions and work with Mona to get that information. But that's what it means to us in our heart. It means to us as employees. And that's my presentation.
The 16 was it? Okay.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate that.
Can I just follow up with my missing piece of information, if you don't mind?
Yes, you may.
So, correction, that was not 16,000 miles, that was 16,000 gallons. There are 240,000 miles, averaging 15 miles per gallon. I'm not sure, I think that's probably low enough for a cruiser. And then it's multiplied by the $2.67, which is the going price of gas. So 240,000 miles. The 16,000 is actually an accurate number, which refers to gallons. 39,000 is still the accurate number, which is the cost at our $2.67. Okay, sorry.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense on your end, Bill?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mona, for clarifying that.
Thank you.
We know that you got it all at the last minute.
It's been a lot to put together in the last minute. Go ahead.
Great price for gas.
It is. We
All right.
did great.
I stand by what I said. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chief Klett, the changing of shifts, just so I have a clear understanding of it, if they didn't have their own car, they'd be getting to the station. Do we have like a staggered shift, or are we like everybody at the police station at 3 o'clock, everybody at the police station at 7?
So
If we shared vehicles?
currently, our shifts start at 7 in the morning, 3 p.m. and 11 p.m. So there is no early, late car. That has been something that kind of phased out a few years ago.
Yep.
So with the take-home program, you have that overlap. If we have a reduced fleet where we're sharing cars, there will be times, not in every case, it depends on the cycle of a schedule, but in a lot of cases, and I worked in that environment for 20 plus years, where your car's at a call, and you got to wait for that car to come back because the other car left in the lot's being used for the shift. So the shift change for us is seamless. I mean, they can go if they have an incident that's live in real time, they're going. If there's time for a roll call, they'll come in and have the roll call. But again, we're not losing 15 minutes, 20 minutes to take out their AEDs, their med kits, their rifles.
In the changing of vehicles?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And not to mention, we all have our own cars. Imagine you're getting into a car that's been sat in and breathed in, and these are machines, these are offices, essentially rolling offices, and to have your own space is something that I know never had. I never worked the road like that. Something that I would have enjoyed. I spent the first 10 minutes of my day in patrol taking Lysol wipes and wiping the car down.
And then obviously, if there is a call that somebody's on right at the change of shift, the new people come in and could maybe meet them there, and at least the officer responsible for the report could let the others go home, and then we don't have overtime?
That's happening naturally. I don't want to make a suggestion that we're seeing a huge drop in overtime, but I've seen less occurrences of those patrol incidents coming in, which is telling me, and by virtue of just listening on the radio, that's exactly what's happening. Officers know it's their district, they know it's their sector in town, and they're going to go out there to get their brother or sister home so they can take over a call if that works. Sometimes it's a deeper call that doesn't work, but in general, that's happening quite often.
As opposed to going to the station, waiting for the car, doing whatever. Okay.
Correct.
I'll wait for other questions to develop others.
Thanks, Chief. This is, the information is important. Two quick questions. One, I think I know the answer, but just so to make it clear, when officers come onto their shift, the days are gone where you actually go in and go into the station first and you get instructions for the day and then you go back out. Basically, they're once they're in town, they're rocking and rolling, right?
They're available, but in general, we will have roll call if available. It's actually one of our CALIA standards we have to follow to do a pre-shift briefing whenever
Yeah,
possible,
briefing.
or a
That
line
does work,
inspection, something like that. But if there is something going on and there is calls pending, they're going right to those calls. There is no delay. And quite frankly, they're probably getting there before their shift actually is really starting. So as I mentioned, the other officer can start heading on home. It's kind of like a 15-minute rule. It's not really written or said. It's just kind of respect for your fellow employee. And if you're there in town and ready to go, you're jumping on that call to help them out because they're going to do the same for you.
Okay. And the other thing, you brought up a point which I hadn't really thought about. If you have an instance where you're sharing cars, there's the potential for a car to be running 24 hours or maybe more than 24 straight. Is that an extra burden on the car rather than if it ran 3 days, 8 hours a day versus 24 hours straight? Is there like additional?
So going back before this car program, there were cars running 16 hours a day regularly. That was normal. And the only time it didn't run 16 hours a day is if your counterpart was off that day. But there would be 3-4 days in a row where that car's running 16. I can think of a time or two we had cars running for 24 when the fleet was down. And the worst thing you can do for any car is to have it idle, any car. So the wear and tear on a car running 16 hours, idling for longer periods than it needs to, has an adverse effect on the quality of the life of the car.
Right. Great. Thank you.
It would also be that the mileage going back and forth would be less than driving the car for 16 hours in town and so forth.
Conceivably. I mean, I can remember, I can't speak for current averages, but I don't think it's uncommon for an officer to drive between, midnight it's more because they're doing a lot more patrols of the neighborhoods and not a lot of traffic. But anywhere from 50 to 100 miles a night is pretty standard. Per shift, mind you. So if that car's running 16 hours, you're looking at, rough average 150 miles a day.
Chief, a little bit about liability. These are uniformed police officers in a marked car leaving our town. What police powers do they have outside our town?
Well, their arrest powers end at the town, on our town jurisdiction, our town borders. But what we do have is you have the right as an officer to, if you need to infect a felony arrest, you do have felony powers. But as a community caretaker, if you see something that's out of line, by no means are we stopping a car in another town or the highway, and if it's doing something completely dangerous and going to kill someone, I would expect my officer to stop that car and call the proper authority to handle it. I can think of a time I was out of town, off duty, when I was a lieutenant, and a car came head-on at me in Weathersfield, and the guy was a .23 drunk driver. So I called Weathersfield. They take over the stop and effect the arrest. But as an officer, from the liability perspective, if today with all the body cams and cameras we have, which help mitigate that, but they're going to do their job like they would. But those types of incidents are pretty one success story, if he's still here, I think he left. Mr. Suchecki over there was driving home and came across an overrolled car on 84 with no one around. There was a police car trooper in sight. He blocked the lane, got out, and pulled a gentleman from the highway and ended up saving a life. So we're not always talking arrest situations. We're talking about helping people in need. But they're infrequent.
Thank you. Can I just ask for clarification on next steps, because I know this is on the agenda as a presentation. Will
We
there be
also had the
something in
fire
the
chief,
future?
too.
Will there be something in the future about discussion, possible action? Or is this something in your realm?
Yeah, I second that thought.
Say that again, please.
For the part two of this, because tonight's agenda is just the presentation.
Right.
Is the second step discussion possible action, or is this something that we recommend you to take action? What's the next step?
That would be a discussion, possible action by the town council would be up to the town council.
Okay, so that's the future agenda item.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on that, I think my concern is a lot to do with the lack of a policy for the town and a unified, coherent policy than what we are hearing from Chief Klett. I think there are good reasons, and I'm not, by the way, Mona, great presentation, apart from those, a few numbers in terms of like how the funds are used, right?
Right.
There has never been a question about that from a transparency perspective. What are forfeiture funds doing? What are again, private duty funds are used for? That's not the question. That's presented to finance, right? my concern is when these cars are taken out, outside of the policies we already have for first responders, and you shared that, there are still gaps in policy. And I read that policy, those policy documents you sent, and there are huge gaps where liability is not clearly defined. There are restrictions which are not clearly defined, who should be in those cars. So outside of the first responders, and that's where I agree with my fellow counselors here that we need to have a discussion and possible action item where I would like to see personally a unified comprehensive policy from the town manager covering all take-home cars, not just first responder cars. I think almost that's like secondary for me. That's a policy question, that's a budget question. But lack of a policy which is unified for all departments is a big gap in my view, and I don't think we should be sitting here and allowing that as a council. And so on that one, I do have a motion to do exactly that, to actually have a possible action. Me and Councilor Whelan actually put together a motion, which I'm going to share with you guys. And what it does is it just directs the town manager to put together a comprehensive unified policy for all take-home cars. That's all it's doing. It's not making any decisions. It's not writing any policy on right now, and it's not taking away anything from anyone, least of all from the first responders. So everybody should have a chance to look at this, and then I can put this motion in the record, and then you can vote as you would like. But I will give you a couple of minutes to just think about it.
Pankaj, that's not voting on the policy, that's just getting the town manager to come up with a policy so that we can adopt it.
Bingo, 100%.
We should hear from the fire department too. And whatnot.
Please.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief. So
I'm not exactly sure what we're doing here. If you want to present a motion, why are you not reading it into the
I'm
record?
going to read it right now.
Okay.
So
We haven't finished the presentation.
I'm gonna do it for the policy, and then we can go into the presentation because it's a pertinent question.
I don't think we
Which-
can
which
have
the
a
counselor asked here.
motion. Excuse me.
During an
If you're
agenda.
putting a motion on the table that's going to affect all of the cars, we haven't gotten through the presentations for the cars
It's not going to
yet.
affect the cars. It's just asking the town manager, piggybacking on what Councilor Emmanuel said, for a policy to be reviewed by the council at a later date. That's all it's doing.
I think we should go through what's on the agenda.
Yeah, but let me just finish this motion, and then
I don't think we should make the motion now. I don't think the timing is correct. If you want to make the motion, we can vote on whether we should do it now. I think we should follow the agenda, get through the agenda, and if you want to raise a
Yeah,
motion.
we can do it after the presentation. That's fine with me. But I just want everybody to look at the motion because the motion is not setting a policy. It's
I would have
asking for a
liked to have
policy.
gotten this before the meeting, so we're not sitting here reading this.
No, it's like-
and
it's a-
listening to
it's very
presentations.
easy. It's
If it's
easy.
easy, then you should be able to say it on the record and we understand it.
Yeah, I'm saying it. I can read it in. Should I do it now?
I don't think so. We're not ready.
So after the presentation, are you saying, Madam Mayor, or?
I think we need to get through the agenda.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's fine with me, as long as we can entertain the motion. Because I have a second with Councilor Whelan here. He wants to second that. We wrote it together.
I would second it.
Okay, you guys are voting on something. It's
We're
not
not
even on
voting
the
on
table.
anything
yet. We are not
you
voting
could-
yet.
I don't want to hear who's putting forward the motion or who's seconding the motion when it's not on the table yet. So let's just.
I'm ready to put it on the table, but you are stopping me from putting it on the table.
Just as a point of order, you have to, there's an agenda here, and you need to amend the agenda before we can add anything to it.
I think what the mayor's saying is, let's get through the presentation, and then.
I agree.
If the presentation, what we're hearing from the fire department comes within the guidelines of this proposal.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to clarify, John. That's all. I wasn't sure if we can put it after the presentation or not. That's all. Thank you.
Do you think we're finished with police?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fire chief.
Okay, we're going to move on to presentation update fire vehicles.
Up here.
Well, thank you for having me. And in my February 5th presentation, I believe it was, we really outlined the fire department's operating model and how we do it. And we're a little bit different than most departments in town. The fire department's operating model previously called for the deputy chiefs to use their privately owned vehicles as fly cars, getting to the incident quickly to size up and initiate incident command. On their scene arrival, they're gathering information to either increase or downsize the response, or in the case of a recent apartment building fire, to try to initiate or an effective rescue. And in that particular case, it was a missing infant on the first floor. The deputy chiefs put a great deal of wear and tear on their privately owned vehicles, and those vehicles also don't meet the lighting standards currently in place. For many reasons, we only allow the chief officers to respond directly to the incident scenes. All other members respond to their assigned stations, man the apparatus, and respond from there. It is worth noting or mentioning that all three deputies were involved in motor vehicle accidents in the last on-scene motor vehicle accidents in the last 4 months of 2023. And at that point, it was pretty evident to me that it was time for a change. And I went to the finance director with a proposal. She looked at my proposal and gave it the blessing, and then I went to the town manager with that proposal. My job is to protect my people and to be financially responsible, and that's exactly what I was doing. I proposed acquiring cars for the deputies and purchasing them in a way that would not present a financial hardship. And we would purchase the cars with limited access highway funds, and the cars would be used state of Connecticut surplus cars. By the way, according to the state, and I found this out over the weekend, Rocky Hill is the highest recipient of the limited access funds, which means that we've had the highest volume of funds here in town, in the state. And as you could see with last week's incident in Norwalk, the highways are getting more dangerous. We had our tanker incident, tanker explosion several years ago. Luckily, it wasn't under the bridge. It was about 100 feet away from the Orchard Street Bridge, where incidentally an 8-inch high-pressure natural gas line runs under, gets it across the highway that way. So by equipping the deputies with these vehicles, we succeeded in eliminating their personal risk associated with their responses. That personal risk, which they dodged this fiscal year 833 times. That's the amount of time those three individuals left their home to answer the call. 833 since last July 1st. We can also increase their productivity in terms of response time as well as equipment carried. Furthermore, and most importantly, in the terms of health and safety, best practice dictates that firefighters don't ride with or take their gear home, as it is potentially contaminated with carcinogens. We lost one guy to PFAS-related cancer. We're not going to lose another one. This can be found in the statewide model, by the way. The statewide model for the maintenance of remediation of toxic substances on turnout gear. So the state gave us a great deal of guidance on that. We patterned our policy on it. I do have a copy of the state plan with us and ours.
Chief, can I interrupt one question on that?
Yes, sir.
Because I'll forget it if I don't. Would the take-home cars, would that transport gear?
They would, but they will be in their trunks.
Okay, so in other words, we're
Sealed
keeping
in
it
their
out of their
trunks.
personal car, but
Yep.
it for a safety issue, it would be in there.
Absolutely.
Right.
Gear bags, sealed gear bags in their trunks. Okay. So it's the nature of items like this that helps us retain good people. I look back at the 3 deputies here, and I want to thank the rest of you guys for showing up and supporting us. I appreciate that. 3 deputies here, you're probably looking at 80, 85 years of service to the town, just with those 3. And I have one last thought. There was a lot of talk last time we were in council chambers about the fire department's budget, the cars, capping response or pay per call, and where does the spending stop. I just want to say that our operating model costs. We have a budget, we submit it every year, we understand it costs. But we really need to look at it from a different standpoint, and that is that this operating model saves this town between $7 and $9 million a year, because that's the approximate cost of a career department. So hats off to all you guys who are doing it all the time, and to the 3 deputies. So with that, I stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Chief.
How many, you got 3 active deputies now, but you have a 4th open position, right?
Yes, we do have an open vacancy. You applying?
No.
Okay.
I'm not doing that.
All right, just checking, John.
I'm not
You know
gonna
my
ask a
record,
question.
Mike, right?
I know, the beard would have to go, but that's it.
My concern, I'll just make it clear with everybody, is I don't have a problem, I mean, you state some good stuff. My thing is with the liability for driving out of town. So if any of the 4 deputies, when you get a 4th, if something happens, and that, the same concern goes with the police department. Is there, can you, and that's why we need a policy. Because you're gonna have change in the deputies. Some are gonna be working out of town, some work in town. 2 years later, you could have 3 working out of town, and so it constantly changes. And so my biggest thing is with liability. And not only going to and from work, but if they're driving the car to someplace in Southington, for example, to pick something up, and something happens. Could you think about something like the 2 senior deputies having a car that work in town or within 5 miles of town instead of 4, or some mix of that where we're not exposing 4 cars to 4 people driving out of town, things like that?
We could think of it. That's a big ask, not knowing who that last person is. Okay. But you got to understand the nature of the business is when the bell hits, they get on the app, they go. The last thing I want to do is play Chinese fire drill with cars. We want to get the right people to the scene in the shortest amount of time. And think about the highway too. That's 16, 18% of our calls. One thing we did do, and that was at the request of the council, was last time I was up here, we talked about our policy for our take-home policy. That is currently under review with the town manager. But it sounds like it's going to be under review again. So we are there at that point with that. But I would want all 3 of them, the current 3, to have cars.
How many work out of town?
2 out of the 3.
How far?
But we're not saying they're all taking them out of town. One of them, Groton, no car. The other one is travels to several different locations, and that's why we put the 20-minute circle on that. But that policy's under review, so we really can't hold anybody to it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just an understanding, if somebody is on call and they're at work, they have the permission of their employers to leave on an alarm or whatever?
That's if they have they've got to work that out with their employer.
Right, so I assume that might be the case already, even when they were using their personal car. Like, boom, the alarm goes
Yes.
off, I'm leaving. Like, I already have the prior authority to do so. Okay.
And that happens quite often.
Yeah.
Happened
I
to
would
me for
figure it would,
years.
because they're on call. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Chief, are they driving these cars right now?
2 out of 3 are. Deputy Chief Gentili and Deputy Chief Stevens.
We do not have a policy approved, and they're driving these cars already?
Right, right. So what we have with Deputy Chief Stevens is the car stays in town during the workday, and he uses it for department business and response. Deputy Chief Gentili works in town, is able to leave work for calls. He takes the car down to work and leaves during the day for calls.
But I have to ask town manager that we have vehicles going out without a policy in place. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm just following past practice.
Of driving cars without policies?
Like I said earlier, the 3 town managers I've worked under over the past 18 years have been the decision maker for take-home cars.
But there's been policies on them, correct?
Whatever the personnel rules are, which is what we
Okay.
have now.
That's what you fall back on
Yeah.
for the time being? Okay. Chief, prior to these cars, how did they carry their gear in their personal cars?
Sealed bags, but in their personal cars, and it wasn't the right way to do it. I also want you to know that they all have 2 sets of gear, but there's still contaminants floating around. It wasn't an ideal way of doing things, and the last 4 months of 2023 pretty much said that, epitomized that, and that's why we went in this direction.
Would there be any feasibility to have the car parked at their house, the firehouse, and them drive to that and pick it up and then go respond?
I think that kind of defeats the purpose of the take-home car. Again, I started off with their role as a deputy chief is to use the car as a fly car, get to the incident quickly, provide a size-up, initiate incident command, gather information, increase, downsize response, bring in mutual aid. And I did reference the fire we had at Forest Park, where 2 of us went down a hallway looking for a missing infant in that hallway. That was before any apparatus even got there. So to me, it's about providing a service to the town.
But they've been providing that, even with their personal car.
Right.
It's been provided.
Right.
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
So I have a question. Chief, what type of calls require the presence of a deputy chief on the scene? Or do you have policies for, certain types of incidents where a deputy chief needs to report and others where some,
Bill, I send them to all. Send them to all the calls.
So, okay, so the aim is for every single call for at least one deputy chief to be
We
there.
have a rotating duty officer as part of our succession planning. And if he's on that call, and he's only required to be on duty 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., okay? If he's on that call, they'll work with him on incident command and actually turn the call. And it has to be situation dependent too, but turn that call into an educational call also.
Okay. And so you made reference to the gear that they're carrying, it used to be in their private car, now it's with the assigned car. Are they bringing gear that's unique to them that nobody else has, or it's the same type of gear that's otherwise being deployed on the
Most
fire department
expensive
apparatus?
suit of clothes they'll ever own. Yeah, it's all individually sized and individually issued.
Okay. What's the same type of gear that otherwise is being transported on the department vehicles? And that, their suit.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Are you talking the apparatus, transporting gear on the apparatus?
Well, yeah, so each firefighter has their own, set of equipment they're bringing.
Each firefighter has 2 sets of gear. When and if we have contamination on the scene, and contamination can be from any type of smoke, chemicals, you name it. We do a gross decon on scene. We'll actually strip the guys out of the gear. They go into sealed bags. They go in the apparatus. They come back. We have extractors and dryers in each station to wash the gear, and we are at about 70% right now spare gear for the department. So the remainder will get their spare gear out and put that in service. Part of the problem with the private vehicles is it stays in the vehicles. You know, the contaminant stays in there, and we're trying to eliminate that. We're working very hard. The department does not have a good history with PFAS cancer. As a matter of fact, Jim Lamar's name is on the agenda for later on, and he was the one we lost. So we're doing everything in our power to increase our efficiency as well as increase the safety for these three individuals. On top of that, we looked at it from a cost savings standpoint. I wrote down my notes here on one of my pages. Just tried to do it right all around.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Chief. Thanks for giving this presentation. And I don't know if this is for you or for Ray, but can you just talk a little bit about what I'll call a policy about having other passengers in the vehicle when it's not, when they're not on a call, obviously, and for doing other things? Like, I know they can go to a call and they can go to work and they go home with the vehicles. Are they allowed to do other things with these vehicles? Go to the grocery store, go to the movies, blah, blah, blah? Or is it strictly those work-home calls? So just trying to understand the parameters around this.
And I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm not driving that to the movies. I'm not driving that to dinner.
Right.
It attracts attention. It's a marked vehicle. It's red. But I am driving it to the grocery stores. And I'll tell you what, if I get a call, if I'm in one of the stores, I've left a cart there before and come back for it. It's just the nature of the business.
Right.
I can't see taking it out of town for entertainment purposes.
Right. No, I'm just trying to get like a full-blown idea of like what is and isn't, contemplated for these vehicles. And what about other passengers in the vehicle?
I think that depends. I think that depends on where you're going. I've had my family, adult family, not all together, but in the vehicle with me at times. Kind of depends on the call, where the call is, type of call. I've also driven home, dropped them off before going to the call. It all depends. Depends where you are when the call comes in and what you're doing at the time and so forth. These guys are giving up their time freely to do this job. We've got to make it easy for them. And this is the next step to making it easy. There is, and I hope I get the quote right, and I'm sure I'll get corrected if I don't, but these are the only three individuals in this town that do town business without a town vehicle. Nobody else does. And I think it's gotten to the point where we need to do something for them. We came up with a very low-cost alternative for it. And they are doing the job. Like I said, 833 times since July 1st, the three of them left their houses to answer calls.
Chief, just a question about liability, and part of my job is protect the taxpayers of this town. With them...
We have the same job, Fran.
With them being out of town, though, responding lights and siren back to our town, that's a concern to me for liability reasons. Have they been trained in driving that type of vehicle, an emergency type situation?
Yes, they have. All vehicles that we drive, we recertify every year on a written and a practical test, as well as taking EVOP, Emergency Vehicle Operations Procedure training every year.
Thank you.
So, Chief, thanks for the presentation and all the details you provided, just like Chief Klett. Again, like I would just reiterate, like my concern is about lack of a unified policy, which does not exist today for all town departments. And I would like that policy to be in place and reviewed fairly for all departments, including yours. That's all I can say right now. And for that to happen, we need to have a written policy. But thank you for taking your time and like walking us through all the necessary details of why you need that vehicles. I think that's a whole separate question once we have the policy, right? But I don't think we can make a decision on these matters about dollar cents because we talked about that a lot without actually having the policy in front of us. I have a lot of gaps, at least for myself. So I would just say thank you both, Chief Klett and you, for walking us through it. And again, but I look forward to getting the policy from town manager, which is a unified policy for our town for all take-home vehicles.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
for having me.
Thank you. And with that, I would like to make a motion to direct our town manager to develop a comprehensive and unified take-home policy, vehicle policy for all town departments. Policy should define take-home vehicles and their purpose. The policy should outline the authorization process, indicate who is responsible for oversight, as well as provide the objective criteria under which a take-home vehicle is permitted. The policy should be based on an operational purpose rather than as a perk of employment. Take-home vehicles should provide a benefit to the public, not just the employee. The town manager should report back to the town council with a written policy in the town council meeting of May 20th, 2024. The following should be considered in the drafting of the policy. The policy should address limitations on how the vehicle may be used, personal use, and private employment. Number 2, the policy should address non-employee passengers. Number 3, the policy should address a limit on commute mileage, restrict employees from commuting with a take-home vehicle beyond a certain number of miles or out of town. Number 4, use predefined criteria to determine if a take-home vehicle is permitted. For example, does the employee have primary emergency response duties? Does the actual number of emergency responses justify the expense of the government covering personal commuting miles? Cost-benefit analysis. The policy should consider establishing a minimum number of emergency callbacks before a vehicle is authorized to be taken home. Number 5, policy should clearly express if short-term take-home vehicle assignments will be allowed. And that's my resolution. Do I have a second?
Do we need a motion to amend the agenda first?
Yeah, we do.
Motion to amend the agenda to include the resolution.
You need a second.
Yeah.
For your motion. Okay, so.
Second.
Yeah, he seconded it already. Yeah.
Okay.
He didn't second the motion to amend the agenda.
Right.
So you need
Yeah.
to make
So
a
he-
motion to amend the agenda. Are you seconding the motion to amend the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Now you're making your motion.
Yes.
Want to read it again?
No.
Okay.
And you're going to second that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I do. Well, have we approved the amendment of the agenda?
Yeah.
That's the motion that's before us right now, right?
Yeah.
It's the motion to amend the agenda is before us right now.
So I have no discussion on that.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Okay, well,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. No, go ahead.
I mean, I generally think that moving to amend the agenda is something that is not something we should be doing routinely. If something comes up that's urgent and needs immediate action, that's when it's called for. This strikes me as a type of subject matter that can and should be addressed in the ordinary course as part of our regular meeting packets. I know we got an email at 3 o'clock this afternoon that I did not have a chance to review. So I don't know why this can't just be taken up the ordinary course at a future town council meeting. So it's not apparent to me why we should be proceeding down this path, amending the agenda and kind of shoehorning something in that without an immediate.
Yeah, it is trying to put it
obvious
in the.
need.
It is trying to put it in the normal course of action for the next town council meeting. That's what it's doing.
Okay, but that's something that's done through through a process, as I understand.
It's just trying to be-
Can I finish my
Allow him to
sentence?
finish, please.
my understanding is that's done in the ordinary course in conversations between the mayor and
Fair
the
enough,
town manager. I know that the mayor and the town manager take suggestions from councilors for potential future agenda items. I mean, we have a procedure that works well. And, this is being kind of put to us on the fly, and I don't think this is the appropriate process, again, unless it's an emergency or situation or something that's an obvious follow-on to something that we've been discussing anyway. Maybe, but this procedure just strikes me as overkill and unnecessary here, so it's not apparent to me why we're proceeding this way.
Any further discussion? Okay, so the vote.
Actually, I need to know what the motion is. Is
The
it
vote
motion
is-
to take an action?
No, the vote is to whether we want to amend the agenda to put.
Oh, that's right.
To
It's under consideration.
put a motion on, and the motion is this extensive motion, and to vote on that motion. I tend to agree with you, Counselor O'Sullivan. I think whenever you have to type up a motion, necessarily it is complicated, and there should be opportunity to review it, and there shouldn't be stringent deadlines imposed with respect to that, or so much information that it's difficult for us, since we're not policy drafters, to sort of say, yes, this is how we should move forward. So that's my take.
The other thing I would add, just in this particular circumstance, we're in the middle of the budget process. Monday, May 20th is going to be our budget night, which means a lot of work needs to be done between now and May 20th. I think that needs to be the first priority. This is something that didn't just start this week. And it's not going away anytime soon. We can, do this in a timely manner and, do thorough research and not take away time from our town manager and finance director when they need to be focused really 99% on the budget, 1% on everything else that's already on.
Yeah, so I think this, first of all, like the conversation is about, should we amend the agenda? That's a separate question. If we don't get through that toll gate, then we can't go to the motion itself. But the motion itself is actually.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I think
You can put a friendly amendment on the date if
No,
you
but I'm saying
disagree
we
with the
shouldn't
date.
amend
But
the agenda because we don't need to put extra things on them.
That's fine. I mean, that's why I'm putting it out there for a vote, so for public to see if we do feel like this topic is important of our attention. If it's not, everybody will take a vote and.
I think that's
We will put it on the record. I think that's the idea I'm going with.
It's not an either or. That doesn't mean it's not important. It just means there's a right way to do
Well,
things.
it's just my way to look at it.
I mean, trying to shove this down our throats when we're in the height of the budget season is not the right time to do it.
I made a case.
We've got a whole bunch of other months. We have a whole summer where things are generally quiet. We can really.
Yeah, we amend the agenda all the time. Actually, I can give you a lot of scenarios where, actually, this evening, starting of this meeting, we amended it for 2 reasons. So it's not. Don't tell me it's never been done before.
I didn't say it wasn't done before. This is a major. This is a major topic.
It's time for action. It's time for action. I think there are a lot of people who talk about this issue, about the lack of a policy, but we never get action from the council. Like we get it from like people who are out there in the public, and they are demanding action, and we are not having any action in this council.
Okay, we're going to allow Counselor Levine to respond, and then we're going to take a vote.
Okay.
All I'm saying is the timing is not right. We are 2 weeks away from passing the budget. This is the height of the budget season. Mona works till like 10 o'clock every night already. Ray works late as well. Councilor Greenspan and I work a ton of hours in the budget. We don't need another thing right now. Doesn't mean it's not important. It just means the timing is not tonight. That's all I'm saying.
It's just asked for.
Why don't we do some month ago?
Okay, I'm going to call. Okay.
I'm just saying the time's
Okay,
not.
we got it. So I'm going to call all in favor of a vote to amend the agenda to put this written motion on. That's the motion.
Aye.
All in favor?
I'll go aye.
Aye.
3. Any opposed? Aye. Any abstentions? Okay, motion fails. Moving on to new business, item B, discussion possible action, amendment of Town Ordinance, Chapter 4, Capital Projects, Article 1, subsection, or Section 4-1 and 4-2, use of general fund, undesignated fund balance.
Mona, if you don't mind if I just kind of chime in on this one?
Yes.
I know we've talked about it a little bit. I think the real piece, the paragraph 4.1, doesn't require any changes. It allows our fund balance, and it uses the words, is authorized, not must. So the town manager can use fund balance, so I think that's fine. The 4.2 is forcing us to use anything over 6% for the capital improvement budget, and the goal is to kind of grow our CIP budget. So I just think in 4.2, that's all we need to do is adjust that percentage, and I believe the goal number was 10%.
Correct.
So I may be oversimplifying it, but I think the only modification we need is in paragraph 4.2. Monies undesignated in the fund balance from the preceding fiscal year that exceed and make the change from 6% to 10% of the general fund expenditures shall be applied to capital improvement budget. And that would help us achieve our goal.
That sounds right. That sounds, I think, consistent with the input we heard from Ray and Mona in the past, but I guess I'd be interested in hearing their feedback to that, whether they think that amendment is kind of what they need.
Yeah, that's spot on. And all we would need is somebody to make a motion to set a public hearing to amend town ordinance.
Section 4.2.
Yeah,
Yep.
Chapter 4, Capital Projects, Article 1, Section 4-2. For June 3rd?
After the budget, that makes a lot of sense.
So just one clarification, so it's up, so the new change would be up to 10%?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, to increase undesignated fund balance from 6 to 10%.
No, you don't have to say from 6, you just have to say
Take
up
out
to
to.
10%, yeah.
Up to.
What monies are in the general fund?
Presently, you have 5.2%, which is about $5 million.
What's that used for?
Nothing. It is used, we have to keep the 5% in place. The 2% is actually in the general fund budget proposed as a source of revenue, which is $400,000.
It's not like we're gonna budget for this fund, though, correct?
No.
This 10%, we'll just work up to it as we go.
Correct. Unexpended will replenish it.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for June 3rd for the use of general fund undesignated balance. What time should we set that for?
We usually do 6:30, correct?
6:30? For 6:30 PM.
And do you want to reference the section?
Yes, and the modification will be in 4.2, use of capital projects, and the modification will be in the first sentence, changing the 6% to 10% of the general fund.
Second motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Section C, Memorial Naming Committee referral. Memorial designation for Pratt Street Extension to Captain James Lamar Way.
Is there a chair of the, Fran?
Yes.
Do you want me to, or do you want to?
Well, we had a memorial meeting to rename this. Town citizen brought it to our attention. He brought up some information why he thought Captain James Lamar Way should be added to the Pratt Street extension. Our committee unanimously voted in it to approve. So I guess it goes to
All
the
right,
council.
so do you want to put a motion on the table to do that?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we approve the Pratt Street extension, have a name writer on there, also named Captain James Lamar Way.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on to mayor's report. Tonight I'm going to read another statement for you, so you may want to run now. It's not going to be too long. And this is basically some remarks regarding our Century Hills action. So the council has approved a settlement in the Century Hills action. The settlement is an important part, but is certainly not the end of the town's efforts to ensure that public health and safety codes are enforced and complied with respect to the Century Hills apartments. The enforcement action brought town officials and Century Hills together to achieve compliance with many of the outstanding code violations and open permits, and establishes a defined path to complete a systemic plan to achieve and confirm code compliance in each of the Century Hills buildings. Through collaboration between Century Hills, the town manager and his staff, and code officials of the town, we know to date that there are no outstanding code violations from the original complaint. Century Hills has engaged experts to perform necessary inspections of all fire doors in the buildings, and a well-regarded firm to provide electrician services to close numerous outstanding violations and permits. Century Hills and the town also agreed to terms for a series of multiple unit inspections to confirm and establish code compliance. The town and Century Hills also agreed to an expedited code enforcement dispute resolution system that will enable cost-effective and speedy code enforcement proceedings and minimize the need for time-consuming and costly civil litigation in the future. You should understand the sole focus of the litigation and the settlement is to achieve compliance with public health and safety codes, including the housing code, building code, fire code, and the public health code. The town does not and cannot play a role in landlord-tenant disputes unrelated to code compliance. I want to thank our dedicated staff for their hard work in creating this agreement and dedicating substantial time to pursue code compliance in the Century Hills buildings and units. I also thank Century Hills representatives for their efforts in working with the town in establishing terms for full compliance, and expect that it will pave the way to confirm and maintain compliance now and in the future. And transitioning to some other things happening, we had our first Food Scraps Warriors Day. So we are trying to encourage folks to go down to the transfer station, drop off their organic food scraps, kind of get used to that habit. And we have a little competition going on, and every week for the month of May, we will sort of award one person who goes down there and does this with a gift card to one of our local farms. And I want to congratulate Stephen H. for being our first warrior. The Cora J. Belding book sale was a huge success. On Sunday, they had their bag of book sale, which was very exciting and a good moneymaker and a tremendous turnout. The place was packed, so congratulations to them. We all were very happy to attend Chief Klett's swearing in and promotion ceremony, and we want to congratulate Officer Chris Bouchard, Sergeant Jessica Ostrowski, Lieutenant Joe Smith, and Lieutenant Steve Morgan. We thank you for your service, and we wish you many, many years of success and safety. I was honored to go up to the LOB last week to participate in the announcement of the state's new Asian American and Pacific Islander Issues Caucus. As you know, Rocky Hill is one of the fastest growing municipalities, but our Asian American community is also one of the fastest growing communities in the state of Connecticut. So the new AAPI caucus is really going to be an important resource for communities like ours who are faced with challenges. It's going to expand opportunities, and it's going to improve outcomes. Notably, our very own Jordan Oakes, who used to go by the name Matthew Lanciato, is a young man from the town of Rocky Hill, and he is breaking barriers out in a little down south, actually, in the country music world. He is releasing a new song called Who Don't this Friday. And so I want to encourage everyone to go out and download it and support one of Rocky Hill's young artists. A couple more things. Welcome to Local Infusion. We had a ribbon cutting for them. It is a premier state-of-the-art infusion center. It's really beautiful with private rooms, very, very different model as far as infusion centers go, and we're very lucky to have them here in town. The Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce is holding a spectacular business after hours on Wednesday, May 15th from 5 to 7 p.m. It'll be at the Wadsworth Mansion in Middletown. These special business after hours are unique. There's tons of food, tons of people, cash bar. And just, it's a great networking opportunity. So if you are a small business or a big business and you are a chamber member, this is a good night for you. And then a big shout out to Girl Scouts Troop 10246. They earned their Silver Award for creating Rocky Hill's first self-guided tour of Quarry Park using a QR code, which was super, super cool. It's a wonderful gift to our community, and we're very thankful to those girls. And let's see, the ferry is open. Okay, that's exciting. And the last thing is May is our annual walking competition. So it's something that's hosted by the Central Connecticut Health District, and Rocky Hill has been the recipient of this massive trophy for getting the most steps in the month of May. So if you haven't signed up yet, please do. It's super easy. You can actually pick up a free pedometer at the Health District if you want to compete that way, or you can do it all digitally on your phone. And that concludes my report. And we'll move on to town manager's report.
All right, I can skip the walk this May paragraph. And just to comment on that, the new infusion facility is phenomenal. It's just a new concept I've never even experienced before. They're almost like luxury suites that people who need intravenous therapy they have a private room, they have furniture for company, big screen TV. It's just fantastic. I'm going to jump right in on the pickleball because that's why we have people glued to their televisions to the very end of this meeting. Bids for the pickleball court project were open on April 29th. The low bid was submitted by Hinding Tennis LLC at a cost of $417,773. That bid will be referred to finance for approval.
We'll be sending it to government ops.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
it
that
was
changed,
changed.
yeah.
Yeah. Government ops was rescheduled. Construction scheduled June, July to start.
Any idea how long it roughly takes for construction for that?
And that, I don't know.
Okay.
The grout repair at the high school should be complete within 6 to 7 weeks. That's also includes the replacement of the main drain at the high school pool. Just a reminder for Memorial Day, the Memorial Day Parade will take place Monday the 27th, beginning at 9:30 a.m., starting at the high school and ending at Veterans Memorial Green. Those who want to participate or to volunteer, you need to contact Rita at 860-258-2772 or Henry Vassell at 860-982-0875. And also a big thank you to our sponsors, Care Partners of Connecticut, Liberty Bank, M&T Bank, and Rose Hill Memorial Park. And for those counselors who will be marching in the parade, I am directed by Rita to tell you to be there by 8:45 a.m. and wear red, white, and blue. And just, I've attached an update which highlights some of the recent planning and zoning activities, particularly associated with the affordable housing plan. Some of these activities include amendments to the zoning regulations, that reduce required parking, change in uses within the regional commercial zone, which is that area around exit 24 on Silverstein Highway, for 10% of the, well, actually for mixed use, to allow mixed-use residential, and also provide for a required a minimum of 10% of the units designated as affordable. And they're also they also already have existing language for accessory apartments, which they approved last year. Some developments that are underway, Henkel Way, that is the Vessel 96-unit affordable housing application. Construction has started. If you go by there, you see that site's all under construction. Of course, Kelson Row, 1344 Silverstein Highway, the large office building behind Wendy's, that was converted, or not converted, but it was approved about a year ago, from office to 54 apartments, due mainly to the loss of all the tenants in that building, all the office tenants. 1800 Silverstein Highway, which is Stepney Place. The commission approved 72 more apartments in 3 buildings behind Stepney Place. And also, there are 36 two-bedroom units that were approved at 2094 Silverstein Highway and Bel Air Court. It's a private road that comes right off of Silverstein Highway. In the Affordable Housing Committee, they're looking at a special meeting, which was held on May 9th, but also another meeting which was held a couple of days ago, and they're looking at policies and trying to map out what their first steps should be, looking at like a affordable housing funding or a fund and other. I'm sure that will be evolving over time, coming back to the council for a report. Then I also attached a whole bunch of proposed legislation, which I'm not going to go through. Jeff?
Thank you.
And that is all I have.
Awesome, thank you. All right,
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.